This is a drawing of an antique candle box, or I suppose it could have been a salt box, whether it just depends what you put in it, I suppose. I spotted it on an antiques programme and I thought it was worth making, so I've drawn it up as best I can. Obviously it's easier if you've got a thing in front of you, but it looks about right. This decoration on the front and on the lid is what you call a bell push moulding, which I've turned one up on a scrap bit of elm just to make sure I've got the shape right. It's all out of half-inch oak, so next thing I'll do is machine up some timber and get on with it. The first thing I'm going to do is pick out the best pieces for the lid and the front, and then I can put it on the lathe and turn up this bell push moulding. This is the backboard. I've squared off the bottom and trimmed the sides down and marked out the top piece. That just needs cutting out on the bandsaw, and a hole needs drilling so it can be hung up on the wall. Once I've machined everything, I go over it with this, which is just an old coffin plane, and I've rounded the sole over slightly, and the blade. It just gives it a slightly uneven finish. It's a bit like an old scrub plane, which I do have here. The difference is the blade has a slight curve to it, that way. So when you actually sharpen it on a flat stone, it takes the corners away more than the centre, and it gives you a nice curved edge. This was the first form of attack to a rough sawn board. Then I did go over it with just a coffin plane, a smoothing plane. So these are the two turnings finished. That's the lid. I still need to trim the ends off that to get rid of the holes where I fixed it to the faceplate. This one's been squared up and for the front. But what I do need to do next is trim the top at an angle so it follows that line of the side. So that's the back finished and the sides. So all I can do now is glue those on. There are no joints in this at all. Sometimes they put dovetails in the front, but the grain has to run horizontally for that to work. This is going to be the top piece, so I've just marked out this area here which needs cutting out with the bandsaw. The ends need cutting off and the front needs an angle putting on it. Planed up this scrap piece of wood square and using it as a guide so I can trim the edge of this nice and straight. That's nice and straight now, so that fits on nice and snugly. So I've got a nice neat straight line down there. I've cut the ends off and just put a slight radius on them and cut the angle on the front and started doing the door. I've cut the same on the front of the door so they butt up together like that. And these will be hinged. On the original one it had a leather hinge, but I'm going to put brass hinges on this because I've got a few old ones knocking about. Before I glue this in place I'm actually going to cut in the hinges and do them to the lid as well. It's just a lot easier than doing it once it's fitted. everything's glued together now. All I need to do is get rid of this little shoulder here where the backboard should flow in to the top. To clamp the base on at the front, I use these bits of pine with a little wedge chopped out of them. This just made sure I didn't damage the top edge of the front. That's the box made now. I've fumed it with ammonia and distressed it a little bit with these things. Now I just need to put a little bit of colour in and polish it. So that's the box completed now. After I fumed it, I gave it a light wash of mahogany water stain, then a couple of coats of button polish, then I mixed some polish with vegetable black and burnt umber, I think it was. Brushed that on, then wiped it off just to leave it sort of around the edges and in all the recesses and that. I also aged up the inside and the back. It's not a difficult thing to make. Like I say, there's no joints to make or anything. It's all made from 1/2 inch, bit of turning, cutting things to size, gluing them together, and that's it.